Wouldn't it be cool if there's a tool that could automatically test your documentation, that would check each of your API, CLI, and SDK calls every time you did build or published? And what if it could even check your UI to make sure that it's current? What if I told you that not only does this tool exist, it's open source? The tool is called Doc Detective. Today I'm going to react to their onboarding and documentation. I'm Diana Payton, and this is Technical Writing Uncensored. As always, I adopt a persona as a new user. And today's persona is going to be an easy one because it's similar to me in real life. I'm an experienced technical writer without an engineering or development background. I manage a documentation set, and I want a way to automate testing and ensure everything is correct and current. And I'm hoping setup is easy enough that I can implement it by myself with little or no engineering assistance because they're busy. And let's face it, usually docs are not a high priority for them. But I've heard of Doc Detective, but I've never used it or seen it used. So let's get on it. All right, as always, I start with a Google search. Okay, cool. Docs is test. Tests, I should investigate that at some point. Not great that the first entry is not actually Doc Detective, but the second and third is. And the fourth is a YouTube video with a Doc Detective video. Fifth is the Doc Detective open source repo. Cool. So let's try docdetective.com. All right, nice. Get started, contribute, GitHub. So keep your docs in sync with your product always. It's for UIs, APIs, CLIs. I really like how clear this is. It's for UIs, APIs, CLIs. So at a glance, it's right in my face telling me what I need to know. And two things that obviously tell me how to get started. And three links for getting started. Cool. I'm going to get started. All right. Let's take a look at this sidebar. Got an intro, installation, concepts, create your first tests, explore sample tests and resources, and then configuration, guides. What have they got in guides? Tests, actions. Cool. Nice. I really like a simple sidebar. And this has very clear labels. So it dropped me into introduction. Oh, and notice here, if I click on get started, it brings me back to the introduction. So it's really hard to get lost here. So validate contact with that. Want the Docker image. Cool. So I can, not sure what this is. I guess this is the command to validate my content. Not entirely clear. And I can do it in a Docker or installation guide. And tells me to go check out Discord if I need some help. All right, and then right away tells me what is Doc Detective. Doc content testing framework that simplifies the process of keeping your docs accurate and up to date. Runs directly against your product to ensure your docs match your user experience, whether it's a UI-based process or a series of API doc calls. Doc Detective can help you find doc bugs before your users do. That's a little bit markety, but I'll let it pass. Landing pages are generally a little markety. Here's where we get to the meat of it. Doc Detective ingests test specifications and text files, parses them for testable actions, then executes these actions in a browser. The results, pass, fail, and context are output as JSON objects so that other pieces of infrastructure can parse and manipulate them as needed. Nice. So this tells me what the input is and what the output is. Only difference I would probably do here is I might add an illustration for this. That would probably make it a lot better. Okay, so what can it do? Oh, and notice this lovely TOC over here. What can Doc Detective do? What can't it do? Who is it for? Love it. All right, so I can test documentation for accuracy and freshness, generate screenshots or video to accompany the documentation. That's cool. Generate tests when updating documentation and analyze the test coverage of your documentation and suggest solutions. What can't it do? Write your documentation and write your code. And they say that technical documentation can't be funny. All right, love it. Who is it for? Small teams, large teams, and anything in between. All right, cool. So since my persona has a small team where there's often limited personnel or budget dedicated to a project and documentation takes backseat, with Doc Detective you can spend less time reviewing and trust that it's still functional. Okay, cool. So this is helpful because as a brand new user, you often come in and wonder, is this project really for me? Am I in the right place? And right here, it's telling me that yes, this is for you with your small team. All right, and next steps, want to take Doc Detective for a spin, get started. I'm kind of feeling like the term get started is it's getting a little bit overused here, but we'll go with it. I do like that is very clear with the next step and what to expect on the next step. So I'm expecting a tutorial. Let's see if I get that. Installation, that'll work. Okay. Install the prerequisites, download it. So going to follow the instructions to install. Open up a new terminal. I'm 90% sure I've got Node.js already, but just in case, let's check. I've got Node.js installed and updated. If you don't know what I just did here, Node-V lets you know what version you have. Mine is pretty current, so we'll go with that. Okay, and I've definitely got version 18 or later. In a terminal, install Doc Detective globally. So I'm going to copy and paste this command and run it and see what it does. It's thinking. Well, it's thinking about that. If you're working in a local copy of the Doc Detective repository, you need to run npm-i to install local dependencies. Save this file to your current directory as a samplespec.json. So I'm going to take this and save it somewhere. Let me get some Visual Studio Code opened up. As I don't usually check to see what I'm going to need before I go in, so we'll go with that. Visual Studio Code. Okay, Doc Detective has been installed. Now I'm going to copy this content, save it in my current directory as sample.spec.json. So I'm gonna jump in here, make a new file, sample.spec.json, paste my content, and save it. Make sure I have the right name, which I do, and run a test pointing to the file you just created. Okay, cool. So I'm going to open my terminal here, say new terminal. And what this does, for those of you who are not super comfortable with Visual Studio Code, is it opened a terminal in the Doc Detective folder that I just created. And so I can just copy this command. So input sample spec. I should probably see what this content is. Go to the specified URL and verify the presence of the main heading. Verify the more information link is present and capture a screenshot of the resulting page. Okay, I'll paste that, press enter to run it, and let's see what happens. Okay, it is thinking. Should probably set up a timer for this. Okay. Connects basic anonymous disables telemetry, set to false in your JSON config file, running test specs. I like that it's telling me what it's doing, and it just spit out a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, apparently it's doing something with Firefox. That was not expected. Okay. All right. So I'm not entirely sure what happened, but total spec 1, passed 1, nothing failed, 1 test passed. All had 4 steps and all 4 passed, so all items passed. Yay! And let's see about opening this. Okay, so test results. That's pretty much what I had before. Okay, so it's walking me through all that. Cool. All right, so let's see. Congratulations, I've run my first test with Doc Detective. Concepts. So now that I've done a thing, it's telling me a bit more about what I just did, kind of. Telling me what a test specification, a test, a step, an action, and giving me some examples of actions. I actually do like that they kind of skipped past the explanation and just jumped me right into doing stuff, but I don't like that this entire thing is called installation. I would have called this getting started or get started because this is more than just installation. This is installation and trying out and actually running a test. All right, so to concepts, create your first test. Okay, in terminal, is this something I can actually do? Yes. Okay, so I get what they're doing now, I think. So in the installation topic, they had me run a test, and they explained some things in concepts, then create your first test. It is a little bit weird that they explain test specification and test. A test is a sequence of steps to perform conceptually parallel to a procedure. And then they explain it again in this topic, but it has a different explanation. All right. In this tutorial, you will create a basic test that navigates to a web page, validates the presence of specific elements, and captures a screenshot. This will introduce you to fundamental doc detective actions that are essential for creating more advanced tests in the future. All right. And it explains what a test is, even though it kind of contradicts itself before. Let's hope I don't. I'm going to click action. Hope I don't regret this. I regret it a little. It does tell me what actions are, and then gives me a bunch of, I guess, action pages I can click on. And what does this test in particular do? I assume that they're talking about the one that we're about to create. Okay, goes through the steps of it. I would have formatted this in a numbered list, actually, because having this as one really long sentence or two sentences in a paragraph, it's kind of hard to parse. You have prerequisites, that's good. Okay, to create your first test, follow these steps. In a terminal, navigate to the folder where you plan to create the test. I already had that with VSC. Create a new test file named homepage.spec.json. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay, so what it wants me to do is run this command to create a new test file. Now, I mentioned that my persona is a person who is not totally comfortable in the terminal. So she might not know about this command. I'm going to assume that she knows enough to CD means change directory, move to navigate to her project, especially because she's got Visual Studio Code to help her. Let's see if this actually works. Okay. To terminal, doc detective folder. All right, that worked. Cool. So the command created the homepage spec.json. I'm going to close these guys so that it's not quite so complicated. Okay, and I've got, it also gave me a few other things. So like an example.png. Fun. I would have liked to know that that's what it was going to do. All right, open the file in your text editor and paste in the following code. Okay, paste and save. All right, so here is a bunch of tests that it's going to run. Oh, and then it explains the test and the actions that it is using. Go to, find, click, and screenshot. So where is it going to save? Not telling me where it saves the specified path, but hopefully it will put it somewhere I can find it. So save the file. I did. In your terminal, enter the following command to run the test. Okay. By default, Doc Detective scans the current directory for valid tests, but you can specify your test file using the input argument. For more information, see run tests. Okay, and it's good that it has this input argument because I have the previous test spec in here also. So that is a good little detail, assuming that, that there's a possibility that the person ran through the procedure from earlier. They might have another test spec, and so they're making sure that it's pointing to the right one. Let's see how this goes. Okay, so it's going to example.com, looking at example domain. Okay, except example PNG was here already. What happens if I delete it and run it again? I wonder if when I did the touch command, I wonder if that ran the spec and just dropped it in without telling me? I'm not sure. All right, well, we have a bunch of past tests, cool, and so went to the URL, verified that the main heading was there, and that there was a link, and it gave me a screenshot of example.com. Cool. All right, that could actually be really useful. So, and here it explains the outcome. I kind of was looking for something like this up in this earlier procedure. Okay, and that's basically what it gave me. Confirms that the tests were passed successfully, and you have a screenshot saved, and yep, I see the new file. And then gives you some next steps. Explore sample tests, learn more about available actions. And I like this a lot. Try modifying this test to check for different elements or add more steps. So basically giving you permission and encouraging you to take this thing that you have successfully run and then try and make it more complicated. We've got some sample tests, resources. Nice. So as a new user, I feel like this is a really good kind of starting point. Don't really like that there's only one entry there, but contexts. So this is all about where the test should run. I like that right away when I clicked on context, I did not understand before clicking on it, I didn't know what contexts were in a Doc Detective sphere, but right away it tells me Doc Detective uses context to determine where tests should run. So immediately, as a user, I say, what's a context? And it tells me. So that's very helpful. Very useful TOC here. Let's see about the guides, tests, and actions. All right. This intro bit is a little much. I might break this up and with some headings and explain this a little bit better. Because right away, it's a little bit intimidating. Just this huge wall of bulleted text. Okay, but define a test. Okay, different ways you can define the tests using JSON. Run the tests and read the results. All right, once you get in, so if you kind of skip over this intro, this intimidating introduction here, seriously, a heading or two in here to break this up would be really useful, or rewrite this a bit so that it was test specifications, put all of this into some subheadings. But yeah, define a test, run tests, read the results. So this is very helpful. All right, and then actions is before this long list of actions, and then earlier, if I was actually writing tests, this would be incredibly helpful to me, and someday I might come back and do that. So I think that completes this run through. I really enjoyed that. It was a good onboarding and documentation experience. As a new user, it was clear where I was supposed to go and what I was supposed to do when I got there. The documentation anticipated my questions and provided answers when I needed them. It gave the right amount of guidance and led me through a process that left me with a feeling of success at the end. I finished the tutorial with the confidence to continue trying out tests on my own, and I knew where to look for the resources I would need. I'd give both the onboarding experience and the documentation a solid A-. The only reason that this was not an A or an A+ is it was a bit odd to have a getting started tutorial in an installation topic. And that process, the output really wasn't explained at all. So it left the example.png there that confused me later. And that was not a good experience. I would just take that entire thing out and let the actual getting started, write your first test process do the work. Also, there were a few minor areas that could be improved to make them easier to read and understand. What do you think? Is this a tool you would use? Leave a comment below to share your use cases or opinions. If you got value from this content, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. That helps this channel show up for more viewers. I'm Diana Payton, and I'll see you next time on Technical Writing Uncensored. Bye. Bye for now.